Okay, there are certain times in your life where you actually really have to sell a house. Not just because you want a bigger house or a smaller house. Somebody died, you got a divorce, or you're relocating. This is a very important video if this is happening to you right now.
Yep, we're going to talk about the three main factors when you're selling a house: price, location, and condition, and you're not going to want to mess it. Okay, so before we jump into it, Jason, you can tell them your story.
Okay, and this just happened to us a couple of weeks ago. We had a client reach out to us that just bought a house a year ago. So this is, what are we right now? We're in October of 24. They bought the house last October in 23. And a mom and her daughter bought the house. And right after they bought the house and they moved in, the mom started going through some serious health issues, right? Really bad health issues. And they had to move her into a nursing home. And slowly, her health started deteriorating. And within a year, they had to sell the house, right? They bought it at the top of the market and paid a lot of money. And now, a year later, they need to sell the house and they don't want to lose any money.
Okay, so they know that they called us. Let's tell them what we did.
Yep. So the very first thing that we did, obviously, was go over there, meet with them, talk about their timing, and get a better understanding of their full situation. And the first thing that we do is do a full home pre-inspection that we pay for, right? And again, if you're working with an agent, ask them to pay for it. It's really important that you do it, because when you do this pre-inspection, you have an inspector come out, dig through every little thing in the house. They look at the outlets, the appliances, the roof, under the house, in the attic. They go through everything and tell you what is going on with your house. Some things you may know, but a lot of things are uncovered that you really don't know. So we go through get that pre-inspection, and we get the report back.
Yep. Before we go into the things that we did after the pre-inspection, let's note that this was probably the worst time in the year to sell.
Yeah, and for a lot of reasons. You're kind of running into the winter time.
Yep.
Right? Things are slower in the wintertime. Interest rates were still pretty high.
There's an election going on. Interest rates are up.
And so we want to talk about all the things we did to get them top dollar and sell their house within just a few days.
Yeah.
Right? So we talked about the pre-inspection. So a bunch of things came back, right? There were some lights that were hanging down, some outlets that weren't working, some paint that needed to be touched up. Nothing major. But what we do is we take that information, we bring in our contractors and our handyman, and we get all that work done.
Yep.
So we can basically go to a buyer who's going to look at the house and say, hey, like, yes, we knew about all these things, but we fixed them all.
Yep, and here are the receipts, the invoices. But on top of the pre-inspection, we do landscaping. We make sure the street appeal is the way it needs to be, which is honestly one of the biggest factors, right? Professional photos and street appeal, because that's what gets them into the front door. And the more people through the front door, the more offers you're going to get.
So now we're going to talk about the big three things: price, location, and condition, and how do we adapt to those things in a tough market.
So going into the pricing, you can price it low, you can price it where it needs to be, or you can price it high.
Okay. So when you think about low, and nobody wants to price their house low, right? It's a fire sale. Why would you price it super low? Except in the springtime, right? So we're talking about a tough time of year. So if we're having this conversation and your loved one passed away, or you're relocating, or you get a divorce, and it's early springtime, you might want to price it low. Let's say the house, and I know these prices might sound out of whack to you if you're watching this video in another area, but let's say the house is $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? You price it just under what you think it's worth, because you know you'll draw on a lot of eyeballs, a lot of buyers, and you'll create this bidding war.
Yeah.
Right? So you know that you really want 1.1 million. If you price it at just under $1 million, you're probably going to get 4 or 5 offers, and you'll probably end up over 1.1 million.
Yeah.
So it's seasonality, right? If it's not the tough time of year, pricing it low actually really works.
You will never get the highest pricing it high. Okay, so let's talk about median pricing. What is median? Is it in the middle of the high and the low? That's exactly what it is.
Yep. So that's an important conversation. So most people end up pricing their house here. And again, depending on the seasonality, you price in the middle because it's fair, it's what the market says it's worth, and people will come and look at your house because they think it's fairly priced. They don't think it's kind of this low price where sometimes people think that's gimmicky. The reason you're pricing it in the middle is because it does seem fair, right? You're not undercutting, it's not too low. You're not like, oh my God, they don't really want to sell, it's priced way too high. So most people, when you're selling, end up pricing it right in the middle between the low and high at what market value actually is.
Okay, now let's talk about pricing high. I hate this pricing. 2 reasons. 1, it's 99% not going to happen. We're going to get that number. And 2, you're on the market for a very long time.
And I would say, like, that's even your perspective. If you look at it from a buyer's perspective, they hate it. If you are like, so you're selling your house, that's why you're watching this video. But if you were buying a house, would you want to look at a house that's severely overpriced?
No.
Nobody wants to. I've actually seen it work out kind of one time where somebody priced it super high. It was on the market. This is a very expensive house, about a $6 million house near Kirkland. They priced it extremely high. It sat on the market for 6 months, right? And they ended up getting close, right?
That's great.
So it didn't quite work out, but they left it on the market for a very long time at a very high price. So your home will sell. But when it sits on the market and you price it too high, people start thinking something's wrong with it.
Yep.
They don't think you're motivated. And when they think something's wrong with it, you're not
stale.
it gets stale and you're not gonna get the price you want. We have all heard how important location is. Location, location, location. But the thing is, you can't change your location, or it'd be really hard to do that.
Yep, and we'll talk about a couple things of what makes your location good and what makes it bad. One thing to note is, let's take builders for example. They don't buy dirt if it's double yellow line on the street,
Busy streets,
power lines, road noise,
topography if it's on a steep slope.
slopes.
Yeah.
Any of those things can deter buyers from even coming to look at your house.
So the question is, if you're on a busy road, right, or you're on a steep slope, we had some other clients in Bellevue, not too far from here, the mother passed away and the sons had to sell the house.
Yeah.
And it was on a very steep slope. So there are some things that you can do. So that when you think and again, everybody loves their house, right? Your house, you may have grown up in this house when your mom passed away. You may have bought this house with your spouse and you got a divorce. So your house is amazing, there's no doubt about it. But the buyers will look at it very differently.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Extremely differently. So you need to price it accordingly.
Okay, so now let's talk about what makes your location good.
Right?
Walking distance to schools, it's quiet, it's private, it's flat.
There's a lot of reasons, right? Yeah, you're just in that place where people want. You're in a good school district. So again, that's where pricing is still super important. Your price is probably going to be higher, right? If you're in one of those different locations where things are all in your favor. But just know when you're talking to your agent that if they advise you that your topography is a little bit off or you're on a busy street, just listen to them to know that they're helping you price your home in the right way to sell it faster. Now let's talk about condition. And this is where you and your agent can make the biggest impact.
I completely
right?
agree.
A massive impact.
Yeah.
So if you've been living, like if your parents, right? Let's paint a scenario where your parents passed away and they've been in their house for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like this may happen to me in the future. My parents haven't touched their home. My mom hasn't touched her home in probably 30 years. The carpets are pretty old.
Yeah.
Right. The floors are scratched up. They haven't painted the inside or the outside. And so there's a lot to do and there's not a big budget.
Yeah, so just think of an older home with a lot of deferred maintenance. You shouldn't sell your home as is, unless we think that it's probably the best thing for you. But typically, you'll get the best ROI by doing little things like new carpet, touch up paint, touch up the baseboards, landscaping. Little things like that are gonna make the huge impact.
Yeah, and so let's put you in a scenario where maybe you don't have the money out of pocket to do those things,
Yeah.
which definitely happens. There are programs, and your agent knows this, that can get that work done at a really reasonable cost, and you don't pay until the end. Some of like a carpet installer or a flooring person may be able to do some of those things and get paid when you sell your home, right? But you may not even have to go to that extreme. Remember the house we sold up in Kirkland, not too far from here? We had some flooring scratches, and we have a great carpenter who will literally get on his hands and his knees with a paintbrush to make the floors look awesome.
Yeah.
Let your real estate agent take care of all this for you because you have so much on your hands with what you're going through, and they will take care of everything for you.
To recap, when you're selling your home in a tough market, which could be the winter or the summer, you want to focus on 3 things: location, condition, and price. And those are the main things whenever you sell your house, but mean the absolute most during the toughest season.
So if you're going through a tough time, a divorce, somebody died in your family, or you're getting relocated, there are so many things that you can do. And if you just want some advice, we're here for you guys.
Reach out. We'll see you next time.